everything you should know about yourself. How you learn should be the priority. Like, how do I learn things? Because learning is what determines the outcome of your life. Not knowing how you learn would be very stressful on you. Before I talk about my personal experiences, let me just use some detailed links and things that have been posted online. Learning styles are different ways people take in, process, and remember information, with the most popular models including the VARC model, which describes visual, auditory, reading and writing, kinesthetic, hands-on learners. Recognizing your preferred style can help you find effective study methods, and many models also include categories for logical, social, and solitary approaches. I know that my colleague and friend Hamza, I think he's a solitary. He likes to learn alone. So he says it a lot, solitary. That's his style of learning. The 4 common learning styles are the visual, spatial learners. Retain information best when presented graphically using charts, maps, diagrams, and other visual aids. Some people prefer to watch it on YouTube and see things for themselves. Then there's auditory, oral learners excel when information is presented through sound, speech, such as lectures, discussions, or podcasts. Then reading and writing learners prefer written text and thrive with books, reports, essays, and note-taking. These are the noisy ones that have dominated this field and told the rest of us that we're not smart. It's them that think that anything that is in the book is authentic. That's them, annoying set of people. Kinesthetic, tactile learners learn best through physical activity, hands-on experiences, and direct interaction. But these are not all. The problem with this VARC model is that it's very limiting, and it is very traumatizing if you don't know your learning style. So just a while back, I did an assessment, and I turned out to be multi-modular, which means I had 2 different learning styles from this. But it still didn't make sense to me. I knew something was off, and thankfully, I stumbled into other learning styles. This is just a summary. Turns out that I have the analytical and logical learning style. How did I know? You can learn by either completing an assessment, which I did for VARC and it was wrong, or reflecting on your past learning experiences and identifying which methods were most effective. So, in the year 2002, I had been out of school for like over a year, and my CGPA before then was 4.75 over 5. I was a first class student, and the school fees wasn't paid. I lost more than a year. So by the time I got back to school, it was just 3 weeks to the exam. So I met somebody who was a lower year than me, but we were now in the same year. And I said to her, "Hey, you're smart. You're always making A's." She's like, "No, it's you." I said, "No, but I'm barely in school." She said, "Yes, that's the thing. That's the problem. You're barely in school and you excel." Then I didn't know what my learning style was. I'm one of those kids that when we were little, before exams, we are playing outside with every other person. And then when we write exams, we excel and they feel like we think we are deceivers. We're not deceivers. My learning style is different. I don't learn by reading. I hate reading. I don't learn by writing. I hate writing. I don't learn. Some things that are normal to people are not normal to me, which is why when I say to people I don't like to read, they're like, "Why are you in academia?" I'm in academia because I don't like to read. My thinking style is different. My learning style is different. I ask questions. I analyze. I review. I compare. That's how I learn. And that's how I figure things out. And I also have something called pattern recognition intelligence, which I'm going to talk about in another video if I have the time. But it's good to know who you are so that it helps you move forward, yeah? Before I talk about the personal story, let me address the last point. While interviewing Solomon yesterday, I told him about his learning style and I told him the advantages, and this is exactly what I told him. When you find out the best study method for you, it aligns with your strength. It's easier for you. So it improves your learning efficiency when you know the right learning style that works for you. If people are learning by reading, but it's not your strength, why are you trying to stress yourself to do it? Stick to your learning style and it will be more beneficial for you. So I lived in a world, I was raised in a world where you had to read and write. Yeah, go and read. So my mom, when I was little, my mom used to, reprimand me for not wanting to read. Go and read, this boy, go and read. You don't read. You'll find me playing video games instead, or playing the piano. Day to exam, I'm playing video games. As a matter of fact, our senior secondary certificate examination, I and my friends, the day to the exam, we went to a friend's house to play Mortal Kombat 3, MK3. No, MK2 Ultimate, I guess, on Super Nintendo. That's what we were doing. We didn't fail our exams. My learning style is different. I'm very strategic. The different stories I can tell when my friends in a different city were playing Legend of Zelda on Nintendo 64. And I just came from my city and they were playing, they were stuck. I looked at them and just say, why don't you take this stick, light it up and go do it here. I did it and it worked for them. They're like, hey, I was just a strategist. My style is different. I observed and I saw where the flaws were and I saw the things that they could have done and then they did it and it worked for them. So back to reading and writing, unfortunately, the world that dominated the rest of us came with this colonial world was more like we have to read and write because they came to places where although things were not documented on paper, they were documented through folk tales, storytelling, hieroglyphics, print, arts, they told stories. Cultures, practices told stories. But then these people wanted to seem very superior, you know what I mean? And then they came with, you got to read and write. You're not educated if you don't read and write. No, reading and writing it's not a flex. I just wanted to say that it's not a flex. So what happened was, because some things were not documented, the documented ones started outshining the undocumented things to the point where even people in academia will say if there's no source, it's not legit. But we forget that not everything is able to get to a source. Not everything is able to be published. You see what I mean? So, and people present their arguments and their theses, and then we come and argue about it. We try to counter it. If you don't get the opportunity to do that, how will your own stand? So reading and writing is there, but it doesn't mean that if you don't read and write, if you don't like to read and write, that there's something wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. My mom would say, can't read, you don't read, this boy. It created an imposter syndrome in me. I began to think that I had a problem, yet I was excelling. I was wondering why people would read and write, and sometimes I'll feel a bit off because I didn't like reading or writing. I mean, I can write, but when I write, it's a little complex. So eventually, 2024, just last year, January, I did another assessment, found out I was multimodular, which was wrong. But I started writing a book on therapy in 2021, August, when my therapist at the time, we had finished therapy. My former therapist told me to write a book that had, progressed through therapy, like a feedback for therapists. And I started, finished in a year, gave her a draft, she read it, and then she asked me, what's your target audience? And I kind of froze and said, maybe Nigerian immigrants. I wasn't thinking about my target audience when I wrote it. And then she was like, this sounds like something for academia. You should dumb it down if that's the case. And dumbing down was what I avoided for over 2 years. So from August 2022, I didn't do anything until 2024. I told myself, just publish it as it is. And then take the feedback and rewrite it if you have to, which is Scrum. And I did. And it ended up being one of the best books ever written. People were like, this sounds like a guide. And that was because then I'd found out that my learning style is logical and analytical. So it was difficult for me to dumb things down. All I had to do was to embrace my learning style and publish the book as it is. And it ended up well. learn your learning style.